Good afternoon and welcome to Irish Media Network Sports Update. I'm your host, Joe Caulfield, and welcome to the show. Now, this week, it's all about the Six Nations. We're going to be previewing all the action kicking off this weekend. And joining me to do so is Hugh Cahill. Morty, thanks a million, Hugh, for joining me.
Pleasure, Joe. Delighted to be here. Looking forward to the Six Nations.
Great to hear. Let's get straight into it. It's a must-win match on Sunday against Wales in Cardiff. It focuses the imagination immediately because there's pressure on. Look, I want to kick off a little bit on a tangent to that, though, because I feel going into the Six Nations, Andy Farrell has a bit of a dilemma because the World Cup 2023 is 2 years away. I believe he has about kind of 26 matches between then and now. And he needs to build a team to bring to that World Cup. He needs to blood in players, particularly in positions where we have current players coming to the end of their career. He needs to blood them in. He needs to get them up to test level experience against significant opposition. But he also needs to win matches, because if he's building a great team but we're losing, the IRFU start to lose confidence in him and his coaching ticket, and he gets sacked. So my question is this: how would you like to see him manage the balance between building for the future and winning right now in his team selection for the Six Nations in general, starting on Sunday?
It's an interesting one, and you're right. I mean, there's a balance to be struck. It's not all about bringing through young players as far as he's concerned, because at the end of the day, he's accountable for his job. He's accountable for results, and results effectively mean money. And during this pandemic, and because of the scale back with no crowds around professional rugby, I mean, the finances have taken a huge hit. So the IRFU will be hoping that he can win as many matches as possible in this coming championship. But that said, he also has a responsibility to bring new players through after the Joe Schmidt era, to put his stamp on what is going to be his Ireland team. And I guess the question is he doing enough of that? I would argue that he's probably not. It's great to see the likes of Caelan Dars coming through, albeit he's injured this weekend. You've got Hugo Keenan as well, is making a bit of stamp. I know Craig Casey's been picked in the squad, and hopefully he'll get some game time as well. But like in key positions, I'd still argue that we're under serious pressure. That being at 10, where Jonathan Sexton is going to be 38 years of age come the next World Cup. But Conor Murray is not getting any younger either. And certainly I would make an argument that Conor Murray hasn't played his best rugby for over 2 years now, maybe even longer. And equally as well, if you look at the reliance, I suppose, on someone like Tyg Furlong as well in the front row, him coming back in would be huge. Have we brought through an open side flanker that has a regular starting pace? Well, I think Peter O'Mahony's going to start at 7 this weekend, which will tell you that we're still very much reliant on him as far as the line out goes, as well as anything else. So there are key positions that you could argue we should be looking to the future, but we are not. Like Jonathan Sexton, I keep hearing that Jonathan Sexton is still our best number 10, and he probably is at the moment. But we won't find out if there's anybody to challenge him if those younger guys don't get game time. And, I think Ross Byrne has had a couple of opportunities, hasn't really taken them. Not all his fault against England in 2 very tough games where Ireland had no front football and he got absolutely pilloried. But I would have a huge question mark over whether Ross Byrne is capable of making that step up to the level that we need for consistency at international standard. Then you look at, Jack Carty. He's been given a handful of chances as well. He suffered after the World Cup in Japan, where he was thrown in, played quite well for the first 30 minutes or so, but then it all went a little bit astray as far as Ireland were concerned, and he took the brunt of the blame for that. But again, he showed brilliance, his ability when he came to the RDS to beat Leinster with Connacht a couple of weeks back. The following week he went out against Munster and just wasn't at the same level. So it's that inconsistency that has dogged him. But again, I would feel like, has he been given enough chances with Ireland to develop a consistency? I would argue that he hasn't. And then you look at,
just on that point, because it's it's almost like the Sexton paradox, in that for the last 10 years, he's been by far and away the best out half in Ireland, at times in the Northern Hemisphere, at times in the world. 2018, he's the player of the year. But because he's been so good, we have this gulf now between one out half who is over 100 caps, he's a test lion, he's so experienced, he's won everything, and the rest who have a huge efficiency in test match experience against significant opposition. Like Italy doesn't count. You're talking about guys who you're going to be able to put out in a World Cup or in a big Six Nations clash and rely upon their experience in that pressure cooker of test match rugby to perform. So the question is, if Andy Farrell has to go out and win matches, What would you like to? What does he need to do to bring these players up and give them the experience? And what games can he throw them into and say, look, we need to take the chance of losing these games to get these guys the minutes they need in these test matches to prepare them for the World Cup?
See, I don't know is the honest answer, because I don't know exactly what the grand plan is here. I mean, if you're saying to me that in 2 years' time, our first choice fly half will be a guy who's 4 years past his prime and 38 years of age going into France 2023, is that in the best interest of Irish rugby? I would say absolutely not. And you you look at Sexton's record over the last couple of years as well, the amount of times he's actually managed to stay on the pitch for 80 minutes. If we're that reliant on a guy who's not getting any younger, whose body is starting to seize up now, and it's harder and harder to get over those bumps and bruises, I think we're in real trouble. I mean, I guess the important point is that Joey Carberry was the successor waiting to come in and fill the boots. And then, of course, his injury, where he should never have gone near Japan in the World Cup, he wasn't right going in, and that's another issue altogether. But he hasn't been right since then. He hasn't played any rugby since then. So, if he comes back to something like his best, and it's a big if because he hasn't played rugby in 18 months, that is a serious option for us there. Looking at young guys coming through, like your man Jack Crowley, who plays for Munster, Cork Con, young Ben Healy as well has done well on occasions, and Harry Byrne for Leinster. I think there is young talent there, but they need to be played. And this weekend, I know he's going to pick his strongest possible team, because if he loses against Wales, the Six Nations is effectively over, and he could be talking finishing fifth or fourth or fifth, and nobody wants that. So I think he'll pick a team to get the best result this weekend. But I would also hope that he does, gives the young guys a chance over the course of the next 6 weeks or so, and manages to blood some new faces, because we need them. We'll need them in 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, they need the experience. As you said, bringing a 38-year-old and expecting him to play 4 group matches, a quarterfinal, semi-final, final, like it's not realistic. But expecting a guy with 15, less than 20 caps to be able to perform at that level is equally unrealistic. Yeah. Talk to me about the back three. I'm very interested in this because I think we have the potential there to be a great attacking force, but I think we need to get our house in order. I think it needs to be stabilized so that people don't see that as a weakness to exploit. If you're picking the back three for this weekend, who are you picking?
I think he's going to pick Hugo Keenan at fullback because, and for 2 reasons. Number one, I think he's done very well, Hugo Keenan, when he's been given the chances, and he's very inexperienced still. I mean, he only made his debut earlier last year. And I think he's done very well with the opportunities. I think he's growing more and more confident. Under the high ball, he's very good. And I think as a result of that, you might see Jordan Larmour either having to make do with a place on the wing, or if he's not in the starting team, I wonder will he be even on the bench. James Lowe comes into the mix. Keith Earls is still there. We know Andrew Conway's in the squad, but hasn't played much rugby at all. I mean, I'm a huge fan of Andrew Conway's. I think he should be Munster's fullback. That's another story. And I'd love to see him get a run there for Munster and for Ireland as well. But I think Jordan Larmour, his weakness under the high ball is going to cost him. And I think Hugo Keenan, I think it's such a key position now. I think the Farrell has to back somebody. I think he's going to back Hugo Keenan and just say, right, you're my man. Get out there. You're my 15. It's such a key position defensively as well as anything else. And I think he'll back him. Who else plays? Well, I think Keith Earls would probably start. And then it's a toss-up between Jordan Larmour, James Lowe, and Andrew Conway. James Lowe and Conway haven't played an awful lot of rugby recently. So Larmour might get the nod this weekend. But I wouldn't be surprised to see any of those three in. They bring different skill sets, obviously. But I think if you're asking me, what he'll do for the next 5 or 6 weeks is Hugo Keenan nailed on at 15. When he's fit, he'll play there. And then it's 6 to 1, half a dozen of the other between two. James Lowe, we know, is a powerful runner. Defensively, maybe not the best. We know that obviously Keith Earls is just still brilliant. I feel he's nailed on to start in the wing. And then, Jordan Larmour gives you an awful lot going forward as well. And Andrew Conway, I'm a huge fan of as well. So I think we're blessed for pace in the back three, but I think he has to stick with his 15 and decide that it's Hugo Keenan and stick with him. Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. Apart from anything else, for those back three to get, for at least 2 of those 3 back three to start working together and start understanding each other and building that experience that we were talking about earlier. Talking about Wales, very difficult to read them coming into this Six Nations because since the departure of Warren Gatland after winning the Grand Slam in 2019, bringing them to the semi-final of the World Cup, it's been an incredibly rapid unravelling of that Welsh team. How do you think they're going to turn out on Sunday? Are they a threat? Like, what can you tell me about that? What's your gut telling you about them? My gut tells me they cannot do what they used to do under Warren Gatland, which is the regions play terribly. A lot of their players are off form. They come together under Gatland and they produced this performance that belied all of the individual performances for their regions in Wales during the Pro 14 or in the Champions Cup. I just don't think they can do that anymore to the same degree. Wayne Pivac is under an awful lot of pressure. He let his defensive coach go late last year. Probably took the brunt of the blame for, I guess, leaking the tries as far as Wales are concerned. But, Alan Wynne-Jones is not getting any younger. They brought Dan Lydiate back into the squad, which was a strange one. Like, I would say, where are the young Welsh guys coming through, like the next generation of players to kind of lead the charge towards the next World Cup? I mean, they got every ounce and drop of blood they could get out of that last squad under Warren Gatland into the World Cup. And let's forget, I mean, they pushed South Africa all the way in that World Cup semi-final. I just don't think this Wales squad, there's an awful lot of miles on the clock. I still don't think they've decided, where the next out half is coming from. A bit like Sexton, they're still relying on Dan Biggar. And scrum half is no issue for them. They've got 3 or 4 all, top quality standard. But the likes of George North, a lot of miles on the clock. Toby Falatau as well, an awful lot of injuries. Justin Tipperick is still a very good player. But Jake Ball as well. These guys, look, they'll put it up to Ireland, right? And Wales on a one-off performance are absolutely capable of beating Ireland this weekend. But I think if we lose this weekend, and I'm not overstating this, if we lose this weekend, Andy Farrell is under serious pressure for his job.
Yeah,
that's how I feel. Yeah,
no, I couldn't agree with you more. So is Wayne Pivac, but I think Andy Farrell is at a better stage. I think he's a far more settled team. Talking about France, because say for instance we make the mistake of assuming that Ireland win on Sunday. Yeah, Les Blues coming to Dublin Sunday week without Roman Ntomack pulling the strings, without Vakatawa in the centre of the pitch, best scrum half in the world in DuPont. They put in some mesmerising performances last year. Maybe it's just me. I can't get over the mercurial nature of the French, and I can't trust them. I think this Six Nations is their time to prove whether they are a World Cup contender in 2023 or not. How do you rate them in terms of where you think they're going to finish in the Six Nations?
I think they'll probably win it. If I'm going to back them to win it. Yeah, because even look, and Vakatawa is a huge loss, and Ntomack is a huge loss. But I think the coaching ticket they have now, with the addition of Sean Edwards, Galtier understands what it is to get the best out of his players for the international level. The clubs have bought into it more. There's more union between the top 14 clubs and the international program. I think, they understand and they recognize the importance of having a French team that will be top contenders for their home World Cup in 2 years' time. And I just think they have a really strong, fit, physical squad now that can put it up to any team and could beat any team in this championship. Like physical fitness has been a kind of a stick to beat it over the years, because they might play great for 55, 60 minutes and then they just tank towards the end. Or the flighty nature of the French rugby, they could turn it on for 10 minutes and then go missing for 20. They're a lot more consistent now. They're a lot more solid. Sean Edwards, I think, has just literally filled in the major blank or weakness in the squad over the last couple of years with sorting out the defence, just making them a lot more difficult to break down as well, and a lot more organised in that defensive structure. And equally, you throw in the attacking flair that they have, and I think they're going to win it this year. England will be favourites, and
that's what I'm going to ask you. Yeah. How did they beat the English?
Well, see, England have injury problems of their own, but I don't know. I have a funny feeling. You might say I'm mad. I have a funny feeling Scotland are going to push England all the way this weekend.
Really?
I could say, like, you could be listening back to this Monday saying, your man is some god, sure he hasn't a clue what he's talking about. And it could very, very well be England beat them 50 points. I have a feeling Scotland are going to give them a bit of a fright this weekend. I don't know if they've enough to beat them, but I just have a feeling that they do. England have been very good, very solid the last couple of years. I know Underhill is out injured at the moment. It's a big loss to them. But they've built up a really strong squad. They play very effective rugby. As Eddie Jones says, look, I'm not here to look pretty. I'm here to win games. They kick the leather off the ball. They force teams back inside the 22. They put them under pressure and they turn over ball and they just maul you into submission. And they're very, very good at that. But I think the French have enough keys in their attacking play, first of all, to be able to unlock the English defence. And second of all, and make them think as well. If you know, England against Ireland the last couple of times, very easy for them to just blitz up in defence, put us under pressure, because we're so predictable. They knew exactly what was coming. We didn't kick the ball enough, so we didn't give them a lot to think about. The French will give them a lot to think about. And it won't be as easy for England to blitz up on the French, just put in their tackles and force them backwards. France will play different lines of running when they have the ball. They'll kick it differently. They've got plenty of pace in there. The pack are all capable as well of putting up to England. They can absolutely cope with the England power game. So I think France are a good bet to win it this year. England obviously would be favourites, but France for me, I'd much rather see France win it the way they play rugby than to see England win it the way they play it.
You'd always prefer to see France beat England. You don't always prefer to see anyone beat England. But no, that's very, very interesting. And you know something? We were talking before we came on. I think that's one of the reasons that I'm really intrigued by this Six Nations, because it'll be a real learning period about Ireland, first of all, which I'm incredibly interested to see who they introduce, how they go, how O'Connell, the effect he's going to have on not just the line out, but the breakdown, everything. How I have yet to be convinced about France. I hope you're right. I hope they no, I don't hope they beat us, but I hope that we see. I hope we see that French rugby that is just irresistible to watch, and I hope they beat England. But I hope you're wrong. I hope we do beat them, so that we have a Grand Slam showdown against England in the Aviva, and I get you back here to chat about that in a couple of weeks' time.
Yeah, it'll be great. It'll be great, and I look. Obviously, you know, if I'm going with the heart here, obviously you want Ireland to just put the last year behind them, to show finally what the Andy Farrell stamp is, right? Come on, like, give us what your game plan is here. Show us how you want to play this game. Sort the set pieces out. Get quicker ruck ball. Defensively, you know, don't be as leaky as well. And with Paul O'Connell, the line out hopefully is a huge improvement as well. I'm not so sure, and I'm not so confident that they will be able to do that, to be honest. I still think we're far too predictable in attack. I still think there's too many players that are just 3 or 4 years past their best. And when you go up against it might be enough to get us past Wales. It might be enough to get us past Scotland. I don't see us beating France or England, unfortunately. But hey, I've been wrong plenty of times, Joe.
I won't be tipping down to Paddy Power now, putting my rent on the French to win the Six Nations just yet.
My recommendations, no.
But look, I very much appreciate the opinions and the insight, and thank you so much for joining me today.
Pleasure, Joe. Thanks a million.
Thanks a million.